Okay, so I'm now on page 14, which says respond to questions on step 2 sources. And in bold here at the top, it says these questions will help you analyze the sources you've read. Use your notes and refer back to the sources in order to answer the questions. Your answers to these questions will help you write your essay. Number 1, evaluate the sources. So that word evaluate means you're going to judge them. Is the evidence from one source more credible than the evidence from another source? When you evaluate the credibility of a source, examine the expertise of the author and or the organization responsible for the information. Record your reasons in the chart. All right, so the first one is the newspaper article, and we need to decide if this is credible or not. And it says we should decide that based on the expertise of the author, the organization responsible for the information. So I would say the newspaper article, in this case, newspaper articles are usually a good source of information, but they can be biased. But I would say that, yes, this is a credible source. And the reason I say it is a credible source is because it gives all sides of the issue. So it interviewed somebody who was for reaching consensus, it interviewed somebody who was against reaching consensus, and it interviewed somebody who was kind of in between or didn't even think it should have been up to the school board to decide in the first place. So because it gives you multiple sides, I would say that yes, it is a credible source of information. Plus, because it's in a newspaper, usually newspapers need to be fact checked, and it's the newspaper's responsibility to make sure that the information they are providing is accurate. All right, the informational article, how to reach a consensus. I find that one a little hard to judge. I would say mostly yes, because again, it's unbiased. It's not based in people's opinions. The only thing that I would say is it doesn't give us the source of this informational article. Where did this come from? Is this some random website? Is it published in a book somewhere? Because that's going to make the difference. So I am going to put on here what is the source of this? And I'm going to put no, yes/no. The list, is consensus decision-making right for your group? Is it credible? Again, I'm going to say yes. Because it gives both sides. So it lists the positives and the negatives. So it's not giving just a biased opinion there. Same as the informational article, my only question is what is the source of this? So this is a list, but where was this published? Is this on Wikipedia? That's not a reliable source. Is this just some list that somebody made in their notebook? That's not really a reliable source. Is this in an encyclopedia or a business manual, or is it in a manual that the school board uses to decide things? In that case, then yes, it is a credible source. All right, and the letters to the editor, are they credible? Letters to the editor can be used as sources. Absolutely. You can get your opinions from them. You can get you can think about how you feel based on what other people say. But is it a credible source? No, not necessarily. Because the people writing these letters to the editor are biased. They do have biased opinions. So, for example, the principal there that's writing the letter to the editor, he knows a lot about this topic. So in some ways, yes, he is very credible. But he's arguing that it shouldn't be up to the school board. It should be up to him to decide this. And so, well, maybe that's his opinion because he would get to choose. And he doesn't want the school board making that decision for him. He wants to be the one in control of making that decision. So therefore, he might not be a credible source. The same thing with the parent. The parent doesn't have inside knowledge necessarily of the way this works, or they might just want what's best for their individual kid rather than the school as a whole. And if we look at that letter to the editor from the parent, she's not really considering other points of view. She's only considering her point of view. So I would say letters to the editor are not very credible sources. If you use information from these in your essay, you need to back it up with some actual facts somewhere else as well. All right, so at the bottom, it says for number 2, prose constructed response. If you disagreed with Mary Ann Dunlop's position on decision making by consensus, which sources would you use to refute her argument and why? So Mary Ann Dunlop is in source 4, which is one of these letters to the editor. So they're asking you, what would you use to prove her wrong and why? All right, so you need to answer this on your own, but I would go back to one of these 3 articles and find something that proves that she might be incorrect. All right, and then for number 3, prose constructed response. Which source best complements the information found in the list? Is consensus decision making right for your group? Explain your rationale, citing evidence from the text. So when it says which source best complements, it means like which source could be paired well with is consensus decision making right for your group. And then it says cite evidence from the text. So they want you to use an actual quote from the text that supports that. Off the top of my head right now, I would say that the newspaper article would complement this pretty well. Is consensus decision making right for your group? Because it talks about the number of people in there. It also talks about the number of people in the school board. The list gives pros and cons. The newspaper article also gives pros and cons. So those two might go well together. So I would look back at those two if I were you.